Well, hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tiffany Goodwin Van Camp. I am the Executive Director of American Friends of Combatants for Peace. We're honored to have you with us today, and we feel your solidarity and support through your participation. For those who are new to our community, welcome to Combatants for Peace. Combatants for Peace is a joint Palestinian-Israeli community working in solidarity to end the occupation, discrimination, and oppression. We believe in a future where all people live in peace with dignity, justice, and liberty. The movement was founded almost 20 years ago by Israeli combat soldiers and Palestinian fighters who chose to lay down their weapons and instead to link arms with one another to nonviolently co-resist the occupation and build a joint community committed to a future of just peace. They are the only movement in history founded by opposing members of an active conflict, and as such, have been nominated 2 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. The movement is guided by the values of nonviolent resistance, and they are showing the world that there is another way. Our talk today is about having courage in the unknown and exploring the new possibilities that this moment presents. Many of our partners and many of our friends have expressed the sentiment that we don't know where this moment is leading us. We don't know what the future holds. And while that is true, we do know that who we choose to be in this moment, how we choose to be together, and what we do will determine what things look like on the other side. I want to thank our speakers who have come today to share about their experiences, their courage, and their ability to dream in this dark time. Our talk will be just an hour and a half today. I do want to provide an update that one of our speakers, Abi Dabush from the Rabbis for Human Rights, got very sick today and is unable to join us. So we have another speaker, Magen Inon, who will be speaking in his place. This recording or this talk will be recorded, so we'll share the recording later on today. And also we have one of our members, Ahmed Helou, who will be speaking Arabic. Thank you to our translator, George. When Ahmed is speaking, if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see something that looks like a globe and says interpretation. If you click that and you click English, you'll be able to hear what Ahmed is saying in English. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our speakers and our moderators. Ahmed Helou, our first speaker, is a second generation refugee whose great grandparents left Gaza before being displaced in Jericho. And much of his family lives in Gaza now. Over the last 2 months, over 50 of Ahmed's family members in Gaza have been killed. And still, he is committed to the ways of nonviolence and still believes in a hopeful future rooted in a just peace. He is a former Palestinian political detainee, parliamentary aide, and the Palestinian Authority. And he worked as an ambulance volunteer with the Palestinian Red Crescent. He's a longtime member of Combatants for Peace and has been serving with us for 10 years. Magen Inon is a London-based father of 3 from Israel who is an educator and holds a PhD in philosophy of education. He has worked in various domains to cultivate liberal values and leadership skills, including with students at top universities, high-ranking military officers, promising young adults and inmates. Since the murder of his parents in the Hamas attacks on October 7th, he has become a leading voice for peace between Israelis and Palestinians within international media, local communities, and the political elite. And because he joined us last minute and was so gracious to do that, he is limited on his time today. So he won't be able to join us for the full talk, but he will be with us for the first part. The third speaker that we have with us today is Hadar Cohen. She is an Arab Jewish scholar, mystic, artist, and political writer. She was born and raised in a Sephardic Jewish home in Jerusalem and also lives part-time in the US. Her ancestral roots span the Middle East from 10 generations in Jerusalem, and with additional lineage roots in Syria, Kurdistan, Iraq, and Iran. She is the founder of Malkut, a spiritual skill building school teaching Jewish mysticism. Our next leader today is Nizar Farsakh. He is the founding chair of the Museum of the Palestinian People and a founding board member of my organization, American Friends of Combatants for Peace. He is a Middle East expert and serves as an advisor to senior Palestinian leaders. He is involved in several nonviolent initiatives in Palestine, and we are just so thankful that he helped us get our start. I also want to welcome our two moderators. We have Luma Shihab Eldin and Ben Yeger. Luma is a strategic facilitator who specializes in creative problem solving at the intersection of culture, society, and tech. She has supported Combatants for Peace since she met them in 2007 and was also a member of the American board, serving as our secretary. Her father's family is from Jaffa and Safad. They left in the 1940s, intending to return, but they never could. Her mother's family from Haifa and Jerusalem left Bethlehem during the 1967 Six-Day War and also have no right of return. Ben is a therapist, facilitator, and coach. He served in the Israeli army in the 1980s in the occupation of Lebanon. After a long personal journey, he became a peace activist and joined Combatants for Peace in 2006, for which he serves as the UK representative of our movement. He's also the founder and co-director of an organization called Moving Conflicts and designs innovative and collaborative interventions that transform challenges and barriers to relationship into opportunities for change. We couldn't ask for a more incredible group of people to lead us today in this moment. So thank you all, and thank you everyone on this call today. And I'm going to now hand things over to Luma and Ben.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with Ben and host this very important session together. As we gather here tonight, I'm reminded of both the challenge and difficulty, as well as the privilege that we have to come together with our diversities and our stories and our perspectives. And our topic, courage in the unknown, exploring new possibilities, is not just a conversation, but really a space for us to share our deeply personal experiences and strife and explore possibilities around spiritual, cultural, and political pathways to peace and understanding. We'd love to start this session with 2 minutes of silence, just to ground and center and bring us all to arrive and to open to hear what needs to be said. I think Ben, if you
Thank
do
you.
us the honor.
Thank you, Luma. We're going to have a ring from my wonderful device. So from ring to ring, come into yourselves and just center yourselves, feet on the ground. Notice your breathing. Maybe you want to close your eyes, whatever suits. Just some silence for 2 minutes. So, thank you so much for all of you who've come, all 493 of you from different walks of life, from different ages, from different reasons. It's a real honor that you've joined us for this conversation. And as was mentioned, this is not given as obvious. It's quite a thing to turn up and have this conversation right now. So I just want to appreciate everybody. We want to invite you to be here fully present with your body, heart and mind, and be with whatever feelings arise for you, which they might. So regarding that, we are going to have the chat open for a limited amount of time, just for now, for you to write in there what brought you here. What brought you here to this gathering, to this discussion? Just a short one-liner, what brought you here, not a long letter. And we will then close the chat, and until the end, where we'll invite you then to say what gift are you taking away from this discussion. And at the end of that, Luma and I will read a short selection of some of your words so that we can all share with them and all hear them. I think that's it, Luma. I think we can go for the questions, I think. And please just put those words in as we ask the question.
Yeah, beautiful sharing already. Thank you all so much for arriving and bringing your full selves here with us today. We're going to start our conversation this evening exploring really the impact, how the current, the ongoing crisis and the current crisis is affecting our thoughts and perspectives in our life. And our first question goes to Magen. How have the events of October 7th and the aftermath since affected your life, your thoughts, and your perspectives and well-being? I open the floor to you.
Thank you, Luma. So I'll stay with the facts, and then I'll go maybe to how it feels. So on October 7th, early morning, my family WhatsApp group started buzzing, and I saw my siblings. I'm the youngest of 5, and I saw them asking my parents how they're doing. And then my parents sent a message back that they can hear gunshots. They live in a village that is right on the border with the northern part of the Gaza Strip. They wrote one message, we're hearing gunshots, we've locked the house, we're in the safe room. And that was the last message we got from them. It took hours until we managed to reach a neighbor. We were hoping that maybe it's just like there's no internet and there's no electricity and maybe no reception. But it looked worse as the minutes went by. And then we managed to reach a neighbor who told us that the house burned down completely. And then we later learned that on Saturday morning, terrorists used motorized parachutes, fly over the wall that separates the village from the Gaza Strip. And my parents' house was hit most likely by an RPG, and it burned down completely. They were among 20 people in the village who were murdered that day. And the next day I was already in Israel to be with my family there and share the grief with my siblings. We're absolutely heartbroken. Really miss our parents. For me, the hardest thing is hearing my kids. I have 3 kids. They're all under 7, and hearing some of their questions about where are their grandparents, and my 4-year-old daughter asked us if we can fix grandpa and grandpa, and it just broke us. So that's where maybe it's the hardest part, thinking that my kids would not have the time with the amazing grandparents that they had. Since that day, or let's say during the Shiva, if you're not familiar, it's a Jewish tradition. There's a week of mourning. So even though we haven't had a funeral yet, because my mom's, they found remains of 2 bodies, but one of them is still unidentified. They didn't manage to extract DNA from the remains. So my mom is not identified. We haven't had a funeral yet, still waiting for that. But we decided to have a Shiva anyway. And so during the Shiva, which was very, very tough and sad, but yeah, I can talk about the Shiva just for an hour, but I'll skip that. But it was very clear in the Shiva that my parents and my family is quite I don't want to say unique, but my parents had very good links with Arab and Bedouin communities in Israel. And so as kids, we grew up with friends, especially among the El Zayadna family, which is quite a large Bedouin family. And a member of their family was murdered and 4 were taken hostage. And we had some of them coming to us during the Shiva, and they're very good friends. And others from my brother has a business in Nazareth for the last almost 20 years. So we had friends coming from there, and people that I know very well as I've lived there for a while. And when we got to the end of the Shiva, we sat the 5 siblings And one of the things that came up in the conversation is that we felt we want to share our voice. And there were already kind of news outlets that were calling for revenge, or some very extreme right-wing voices on the media. And we felt as if our pain is being hijacked by extremists. And we wanted to say that, to be very clear, that this is not what my parents would have wanted, and it's definitely not what we want. And it was important for us to say that we're not looking for revenge. And basically, by saying that in a few places, my brother quite quickly got in touch with some international media outlets and some Israeli media outlets. And I published an op-ed in The Guardian in the UK. And following those initial media sessions, we are still bombarded. Sorry for the bad word there.
Magen, if I may just thank you for sharing. It's a lot, and of course we all have deep condolences for you and your family, and what you're going through, and we'd love to hear from you more about how you're feeling and how you're processing, and what these events have really done for you.
So I started therapy for the first time in my life. For me, I think the most difficult part is the again, thinking of my own kids. And I'm finding myself trying to shelter them from some of what is happening. Also trying to shelter them from some of the things that are going on in their community in London. So that's another difficulty we're facing. And also personally, I don't think I would have called myself a peace activist before. You know, I did make some choices in my life, like not serving in the occupied territories, and similar choices that just following my values, but I wasn't actively engaged in pursuing peace. And now it seems like the only meaningful thing to do. So any other kind of work I can think of, or the use of my time seems meaningless. So there's this sense of the event completely changed my daily routine. And so that's another thing, and maybe to be kind of even more open about it. There's a very difficult feeling that with the death of my parents, someone made a decision over my life that completely took away my own agency. And it's quite a struggle now to find my agency back and making my own choices. And even if those choices are, say, they're becoming much more active in the peace movement, even that feels as if the decision in some ways was made by someone else. And I think that idea of, I never imagined someone would have such a huge impact on my life that is completely out of my control. And now I'm trying to find a way in this storm.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's very important for all of us to hear. And I know we won't have you for the entire session. So before you go, a question we'll be asking all the speakers a little bit later. Just your thoughts on calling for a ceasefire. Where do you I don't want to say stand, but where are you sitting with the idea of calling for a ceasefire?
So it's a question I'm being asked a lot in interviews, and I usually sidestep it a bit. When we are together with other organizations, we had a vigil here in London on Sunday, where I had Palestinian partners and different religious leaders. And in those in the interviews and those instances, I say that I pray that no more innocent lives are lost. I think for me, I also feel I hear my family and friends in Israel, and they're really scared. So it might help understanding the Israeli perspective if you think that every day I open the newspaper and there's a new story from October 7th that I haven't heard yet, and it's a horror story. And those horror stories are constantly on the news, constantly in the news. And so I think people are afraid. And I think calling for an immediate ceasefire, if it's not at the same time addressing that fear, and that fear is the fear from Hamas. I think if it's not addressing that fear, then it's not recognizing a legitimate concern that people have with their own safety. And so if it was possible to have some kind of an international coalition that would pressure both sides to put down their arms, that would be the best possible outcome, I think, at the moment. But sadly, no one is willing to put boots on the ground and achieve that. And so I wish that there would be a ceasefire, but one that both sides can expect to last for a long time, rather than, in a sense, be back to where we were on the morning of October 7th. But I like the headline, the title you gave for today. I think I can't see it now, but I think the level of uncertainty at the moment is incredibly high. So for me, it's better to focus on the things that are obvious and clear. And I think something that is obvious and clear to me is that the kind of event that I've joined is exactly what we should be doing if we ever want to have some kind of resolution, political solution to the conflict. And so this is what I've been doing for the past 2 months, and that I'm. It gives strength to see that many people are looking for that voice and are also joining that mission. And there are many organizations and many individuals who have shared their support and are helping. And I can talk about a little bit more about what we've been doing, but maybe for another question.
Thank you, Magen. Thank you. And it's courage in the unknown, and courage, of course, comes from the root of the word courage comes from love. So thank you for sharing your story with us. I'd like to move on to Ahmed Helou. Of course, we heard that he's lost 50 of his family members and has also shared with us briefly before that he's been in Jericho for 60 days now. Ahmed, please do share with us how the ongoing crisis and the events of October 7th and the aftermath have affected your thoughts, your perspectives, and your life. And just a reminder before Ahmed starts to speak, that he'll be responding in Arabic, and there's an interpretation button at the bottom of the screen in which you can select English and hear the translation. So thank you. Please, Ahmed. تفضل. Ahmed, I think you're on mute.
يسلموا. شكرا لما، وأنا بعتذر إنه راح أحكي بالعربي.
Sorry, I will speak in Arabic because my English are not good enough. So
نبلش من 7 الشهر.
I will start on 7th, October 7th in the morning. I was at the gym. My colleague or my friend looked at his WhatsApp and he was screaming, Ahmed, look, there are Qassam fighters in Sderot. Fighters, cars went from Gaza to the Gaza envelope. I told him maybe it's a Photoshop or somebody is just, making a joke. He said, no, this is real. There are photos, there are videos of that. I was looking at the video. Yes, it's true. It's not Photoshop. It's Qassam fighters actually with the rifles going around in Sderot and other Israeli areas. Actually, and honestly, as a Palestinian, I have had two feelings. As a human being, a fighter, believe in non-violent resistance. And as a person calling for the liberation of Palestine and ending the occupation, this is part of the resistance that might get me to statehood. But on the other hand, I was scared. I was actually terrorized because this is a big risk. This is not an easy thing to do for us, because I know that Israel has the power to kill all the Palestinian people. So this also created or generated fear inside me, because the reaction to this action will be tremendous. Second, the videos that started to flow on social media, videos of resistance fighters and also other civilians entering through the fence, doing things that I was ashamed of as a human being, to be honest. Civilians entering these areas, and I've seen some people, just taking things. I saw someone carrying a bike, going home with it, going back to Gaza. This is not resistance. The resistance I know of and I believe in, maybe, okay, if there is a fighter opposite to a soldier, that's a fight. But for me, violence is not acceptable. I believe in non-violent resistance. So that feeling of fear, I was also afraid. I was worried about and concerned about friends of mine living in Sderot as well. I phone called a friend of mine in Sderot and I asked him, what are you doing? How are things? Where are you now? He said, I went to the north. So I thank God that he was okay. I called my family in Gaza. I have two sisters, and they are grandparents actually. Their children got married. My wife is from Gaza, and her family, close family, is from Gaza. I started calling them. Where are you? What's happening? So what's going on? And the reactions were very contradictory. My story started the day after. Immediately after Israel started bombarding places in Gaza with air strikes, my cousin was killed. 22-year-old young man was killed in the bombardment. This was like a shock. We started also the morning. 2 days later, another cousin and his wife and his 3-year-old child was killed as well, were killed. Again, our house, we went into another mourning. Sadness, 24 hours stuck at the news in front of the TV. We don't go anywhere. We don't. My kids don't go to school, and my wife is a teacher. She stopped going to school to teach as well to school because her family are in danger. She's concerned. I work in Ramallah. I didn't go to Ramallah. All of us were stranded in the room, just watching TV and making phone calls at our friends and relatives just to make sure if they are okay. My niece called and she was asking me like, shall I stay in my house or go to the south? Israel is asking us to go to the south. I cannot give her an advice what to do. So I told her, you choose. Choose what's the best. If there is risk or there is not, and take the decision yourself. I cannot decide for you. So I thank God that they have decided to go to the south. But same, I have connections and friends everywhere, and also in Israel, I have relatives in Gaza. My feelings like started to be confusing. I have mixed feelings. I feel lost. I don't know who to support. Shall I condole my family because of the death of some of them, or stay with my parents or my friends, my Israeli friends? Maybe some of their children are part of that war and they are part of the attack on Gaza. Maybe some of their relatives or children killed some of my family in Gaza. So it became really confusing for me. And I'm unable to think well about it. So I tried to take a decision to leave all the groups that has Israelis in them and stay with the groups that has only Palestinians. But I didn't see or think that this is the right decision to take. I thought, no, my friends who supported me before and stood by me during our work in Combatants for Peace, They shared and joined me in demonstrations and protests against the war, and shared with me resistance against the occupation. I have to stand by them. I also have to check on them and see what's happening. And also the same, stay in touch with my friends and with my family in Gaza. Inside me, my heart was actually there was a lot of fear inside, anger, sadness, mixed feelings, no concentration. I felt like lost. I tried to be strong when in front of my family in Jericho here, because if they see me weak, my family will collapse. So I had to stay strong for them in all these difficult situations. The news about my family in Gaza are flowing every day. Every now and then we hear 2, 3 were killed. A family has been killed. In one of the days, 13 members of one family were killed. And they stayed under the rubble for 2 weeks. Another family that consists of 3 members, one engineer Hussam, his wife, and his daughter also remain under the rubble until the ceasefire. They stayed 20 days under the rubble until the civil defense managed to pick them up from the rubble. And during the ceasefire, another relative was killed, was found dead, or killed on the way on the street, and he's been in the street for a long time. Nobody knew about him. Nobody buried him. Only that was clear during the ceasefire. Many incidents that actually made me stand in different big stations or stages. What's happening? What did happen? Where am I? What should I do? What should I do now? Am I actually on the right track or not? Shall I keep my relations with the Israelis or think about stopping it? How would my family look at me during that?
Thank you very much. And
So
we'll come back to you very soon to talk about that future and how to move forward. So thank you for sharing your very difficult times. We're going to move on to the next part of our conversation, in which we explore the complexities in coping with these distressing experiences associated with the ongoing crisis. First, we invite Nizar to share a little bit more about those complexities in his position, in what he's experiencing, and how to even start to think about addressing the distress and the challenges that he faces. Nizar, the floor is yours. Nizar, yeah, I think your audio is not working correct. I think it's just not
Can you hear me now?
much better. Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you, Luma, and thank you for everyone who showed up. It does matter that people showed up, and my sincere condolences to anyone who's lost someone or who has someone who's not safe. I have to say, I'm 50, and this is the most scared I've ever been. Like what Ahmed said, like when I saw the first pictures, I thought it was just a training exercise. I thought somebody was like training, and it was like photoshopped or something. And then when I started hearing the stories, and then how certain politicians were so outraged, especially politicians that never cared, suddenly now are outraged or didn't do anything, and now suddenly they're outraged. Europeans, Americans, what have you. And it just made me realize that, what do you think has been happening in the last 75 years? Yes, it's a horrible conflict. Brutal things have been happening for the last 75 years. It's not just now that it's happening. So it just reminded me of how we're forgotten, how too many people in this world just look the other way, just give up and say, oh, it's a complex conflict, and just feel pity for us. Rather than doing something where they can actually make a difference. So I was very angry, in fact. Like, why was this outrage not there before? And I also, like, some of it was also trauma. Like, I remember a few years ago when different radicals attacked Arabs in Israel proper, and it reminded us of 1948. And then people like in the government, the Israeli government, saying that they want to evacuate Gaza and what have you. So I was surprised that I was so triggered, because what I thought was impossible suddenly now is becoming actual policy that is even being pushed by the United States, and even Congress was earmarking money for the relocation of Palestinians. So I was feeling also like Magen was saying, this helplessness, that people are deciding our fate. Right, other people are deciding our fate. I was also angry at those, as he said, like those politicians that are taking advantage of our suffering for their own, political goals, which was so offensive, like so indignant. It's bad enough that we're being victimized, and then we're getting victimized again by politicians who are, using our suffering and our pain. One of the ways I've been dealing with this is, of course, mourning with my friends, people who have been through something similar. But I've also been to vigils that are respecting and honoring all the lives. I've been also trying to write letters to the Congress, go on demonstrations, but also thinking how privileged I am that I am safe, and the guilt I'm feeling for my family and friends that are in Gaza and are suffering, and some of them are getting killed, and some of them are losing family. But I guess the biggest thing is just this huge sense of there's something huge that happened, and there are these vultures of politicians who are trying to take advantage of it for their own purposes, and that enrages me. Having said that, I think because I've lived the second intifada and what have you, so I've had my own transformation. I acknowledge my anger, I acknowledge my outrage, and I acknowledge my fear. But then I consciously try to regain my agency. Again, like Magen said, like, okay, so this happened, this is something huge. It's up to me not to let others take advantage of it. I need to do something. And I talk to people, like-minded people, and I ask people that I've never spoken with what they're doing. So that's where I've been, to try to lessen the sense of helplessness by consciously thinking, what are things I can do from where I am, while at the same time being humble that, I mean, I'm in the diaspora, I'm safe, and there are people that are sacrificing much more than I am. So I respect that.
Thank you, Nizar. And we'll come back to you in a little bit around political ideas and solutions that we can explore together. I'd like to move to Hadar and ask her to share. Hadar, maybe you can share with us from your background, from your practices, how are there specific practices or approaches that have been helpful? How can we explore these complexities and cope with the distressing experiences that we're witnessing in this ongoing crisis?
Thank you, Luma. And thank you all the previous speakers. I guess I wanted to just start by acknowledging how much the heart hurts right now. And that's definitely something that I've been feeling daily, for the last 2 months already. I guess almost more than 2 months, is just how much heartbreak there is, and how much it's like every day, it's like, can the heart carry more of this pain and suffering? And as we're, in relationship and hearing different stories and just feeling the impact of everything, and it's a lot. And I really actually love the title for this event, which is Courage in Unknown Times. And I really believe that courage is asked of all of us right now. And courage is a spiritual virtue. And it actually comes from the heart. And my prayer for this time has been, may we transform reactionary violence into revolutionary love. Because we are caught in this paradigm that is very much militaristic and very much supported by some of the biggest powers in the world right now, imperialistic powers that are just constantly feeding this military machine that is just leading in more bloodshed and more suffering and more pain. And we have to find ways to interrupt this system and this cycle. To me, that is a space of courage. So it's to examine, well, what does that system feed off? And it feeds off fear. And, I have a friend who's also a member of Combatants for Peace who keeps reminding me that fear is our common enemy. And I want to say that, acknowledging that the fear is very legitimate, right? And it's not that we're just talking about psychological fear or past fear. The fear is very active. And this is where the space of courage comes from. This is, for me, I'm a spiritual practitioner and teacher, and this is actually the real work of humanity. Are we going to interrupt, right, these vicious cycles of humanity that can get into such brutal and cruel ways? Or do we learn how to actually transform our fear into love? I believe that this is what we're all being asked to do right now. And, the way that, for me, the path to getting there, coming from a spiritual perspective, is to be present with what is. And, this is something that I feel that so many spiritual traditions all over the world, if I could really boil it down to one teaching, is being present with reality exactly how it is. And, that sounds quite simple, but it's very, very hard, right? Because we are caught in, especially in this moment, we're in this multi-layered knot of so much active trauma, so much intergenerational trauma for both Palestinians and Jewish communities, both in the land, all over the world, right? So the trauma vortex is very, very active. So it's very hard to be present with what is when, all of the trauma is being so activated. But we also have to remember that it really is our job to find the courage to start creating healing vortexes that can, in some ways counter this trauma vortex that so many of us are spiraling in. And I think that, you know, for me, part of what I've been witnessing is part of what got us to this moment. And thank you, Nizar, for acknowledging this, right? Is that this has been a brutal reality for so long, for so long. And I think that there's something really important about no longer like denying or repressing anyone's experience, right? Because when we deny or silent voices, especially Palestinian voices who have been denied and silenced for so long, it's like that actually ends up exploding. And we see that personally, right? Psychologically, that happens when I personally repress something within myself. It will just be stored in the unconscious until it explodes in an inconvenient time. So that actually works collectively as well, right? When we repress or when we deny something, it will actually always resurface. So we need to actually start engaging in this very deep work that's going to take a long time. But to me, this is the path. This is the true path of collective awakening, of collective healing. This is what it would require of us to really end this system and all of this suffering. And to really, you know, really find a way where we can intervene in this system that is just feeding off fear and violence, and really choose another path, which requires active work of courage, and it requires this connection to the heart. So, you know, my suggestion for everyone listening is, you know, this is a beautiful space that's mixed of Palestinians, of Israelis, of Jews, of Muslims, of Arabs, of diaspora, of all people. And we do have to find a way to continue our community work of true listening to one another, of you know, this is my pain and this is how it lives through me. And I'm going to take a moment to also hear the pain of the other, right? This is so vital and so important, because this, when we have, you know, shared pain, that is actually what connects us as opposed to separates us. So may our pain be, you know, used as a way to bring our community together into, right, greater service of healing, of liberation for really for all people, right? Palestinians, Israelis, Jews, Muslims, Arabs, everyone. We have to find a paradigm in which we are all included in that.
Very much appreciated, Hadar, and it makes me think of also what Magen said at the beginning, and of course Ahmed touched upon, and Nizar. You know, how does this all affect future generations, and how do we keep our eye really on that, whether it's our kids, our communities, and the future in general? What does that hold? And I think that really transitions us to our question. Our last question, I'll hand over to Ben to take us through that, around what are the possibilities and opportunities that can emerge. Thank you.
Thank you, Luma. Before I ask this question to all three of you, I wanted to thank everybody for their giving what brought them here. It's been collated and it's important to us to hear this. And also for those who are struggling to hear, if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, and there will be a globe which has possibly English, possibly interpretation on it. If you open it up, at the top of it, it says original audio. Just press that and you will receive the actual words that have been spoken in the language you want. If you push it on English, you will hear English all the way through as well. I hear there's many people who are struggling with this, so we wouldn't want that to disturb your participation or reception. Also, people are asking what they can do to help and support. We'll try and bring some of that into the end today to offer you avenues for contributing, for being active, for following your heart, which is the most important thing, which I think already this call is really calling us to follow our hearts and to pay attention to what feels really true to us. And that's really important, that there is no ultimate truth. There is the truth that lives inside us and that we can communicate with others. So, as we look to the day after, as they're saying, to beyond the atrocities that are happening right now in Gaza, to the horrible violence that have started on the 7th of October and the 75 years of occupation, which have brought into focus by Nizar. How can we really collectively envision new possibilities? What do we need to do? And opportunities that can emerge from addressing the current crisis. So how can we really look forward to the future? What is possible? How can we dream, in a sense? I'm going to give that to Ahmed first, please, if you just take a few minutes to respond to that prompt, that question. Thank you. Shukran.
شكرا بن. بس بدي أحكي إنه الحلم بهاي الأيام يكاد إنه يكون مستحيل، لأنه هاي الأيام كتير 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 عتمة، ظلام فيها قاتم. أنا كيف بدي أحلم لبكرة وأنا ما بتوقع إني أعيش؟ أنا كيف بدي أحلم لبكرة وما بتوقع أشوف خواتي أو أشوف بنات خواتي أو أشوف أولاد خواتي اللي في غزة؟ كيف بدك إياني أحلم وأنا أولادي لما يطلع ابني على الجامعة على أبو ديس بكون خايف عليه ومش قادر لأنه خطر يطلع، ولما تطلع بنتي على جامعة بير زيت نفس العملية بدها تمر.
It's the same thing. She has to go through a settlement, Bet-El settlement, and it's not safe around the settlements. How can I dream in these circumstances? My other daughter, she's 15. She asked me, where would I study when I become a university age? So I told her, by the time you finish high school, then we decide. We cannot decide now. Now we pray that we live tomorrow. And we pray that I can meet my family and my sisters. But despite all of this darkness that we're in now, I say that there is a little small candle light, even if it's small, but it's there. There is this hope that we will live together in this region. I'm sorry if I'm a bit long, but I believe in this idea. And if there are people who believe in the chosen people, then God actually have chosen the DNA of Abraham or Jacob to live in this area and to live in this area. He didn't choose the Christian or the Jewish or the Muslim. He chose in Abraham or Jacob. So when Moses came, they became Jews, and they have the DNA. When Jesus came, some people became Christians, but they have the same DNA, and they became Christians. When Muhammad came, same people, same DNA, became Muslims. So we all have the DNA that God promised the land to. I speak Arabic and I am Muslim, but I have the same DNA that Abraham had and Jacob. So I have the very right to live in this land with everybody. Maybe more than Ben Gafir or Smutrich, who originally actually do not have that DNA. and many others who speak on behalf of the Jews, but they don't have this DNA. And they want me out of here. I believe all of us will live or can live in this land because it belongs to us and we have the same roots of the same father. There is no difference between a Jew, Christian, or a Muslim. We're all human beings, we're all equal.
Thank you,
We have
Ahmed.
the same rights, same duties.
Shukran, Ahmed. Really appreciate the depth of your
Thank you,
words.
Ahmed.
I really appreciate the depth of your heartfelt words and sharing. And I just wanted to share that my brother had just had a new baby, and I said I had a prayer that this baby won't feel that he needs to carry a gun when he gets to the age of 18, that he doesn't have to really believe that there's an enemy out there who he seeks to kill. So thank you for your words. Hadar, the same question to you, if you could offer us your wisdom on this one. And yes, we are trying to keep to the time of ending in 20 minutes, so if you can keep it brief, that would be much appreciated. Thank you, Hadar.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think the call for an immediate ceasefire is really, really necessary. I mean, this is the only way to ensure that, there'll be safety tomorrow, today. So we really need to do what we can to call for a ceasefire. And I think this is part of the paradigm shift that we also need, right? To move away from military solutions into political solutions. And for far too long, I'm in the US right now. Whenever there's a crisis in Palestine and Israel, right, it's like the US just wants to send a blank check to Israel. And we need to investigate if that really has been working. And it clearly hasn't. So how do we demand of these international powers to, instead of investing in the military solution, to actually invest in the political solution, which I think Combatants for Peace is a really important organization that is offering that, right? I mean, the political solution will have to come through relationship building, through connection, through community, through all of this. And it's so important that we continue to speak to the governmental powers where, if we're in the diaspora, if we're in the US, if we're in Europe, to intervene in that narrative that the only solution is a military one, because that is just leading to more suffering and more death and more killings. And I think we really need to put pressure on an immediate ceasefire and a call for a political solution, right? Because we need something different. We cannot go back to what was even before October 7th, right? So this is part of how I would see this moment.
Hadar, thank you so much. That's so concise and so to the point. So refreshing. And I was thinking about spiritual pragmatism or pragmatic spirituality. Like, it comes with what you just said. Both the sharings are kind of very, very pragmatic, but also coming from the heart and from the sense of spirit. Really appreciate that. Nizar, thank you. If you could respond to the same question.
Yeah, I guess building from what you said and what Hadar said, we do need something I heard once from Adam Miller. We need realistic idealism. We still need idealism. We need to believe and aspire for a world that's better. And we have the responsibility to find a practical, realistic way of getting there. And part of what I think, specifically given what we've seen in the horrors that we've seen in this war, it is important to address a lot of the things that are standing in the way of a resolution. One is definitely, dispelling this myth that these are two people that just hate each other. No, people just hate fear. They hate being unsafe. They hate death. They hate lack of freedom, right? So it's trying to say that these are two tribes that just hate each other is a cop-out, just as much as saying that this is a complex conflict. It's another cop-out. Yes, there are The details are complex, but it's basically about two people that are trying to exercise the right of self-determination and of freedom on the same piece of land and trying to figure out how to do that without transgressing on the other. I would want to think, the other critical thing here is just the amount of misinformation. If it was already bad enough, the extent to which people have different opinions because they focus on the different facts, now with the level of misinformation, we really need to double down on that. So when people ask what can they do, within your own circles, when you see somebody sharing something without a reference, or when you see somebody says something that is clearly anti-Semitic or Islamophobic, what have you, take the responsibility of asking them, do you realize what you're doing? Like, is this really helping? If each of us did their thing in their own networks or factions, we wouldn't be where we are today. So we need everybody to be involved. And finally, I think it is very important, given the dearth of leadership that are on both sides, that we not only do we want a ceasefire, but we need to be very vocal in saying that the people who are suffering need to have a say. It's not the politicians, it's the people who have hostages, it's the people who have family who died. People who are directly impacted should be the ones who get to say how this ceasefire happens and what happens after it. Otherwise, we'll just be recreating the same conditions that precipitate this to begin with. So if you want to do something, advocate for the people that are most impacted to decide how we end this.
Thank you so much, Nizar. Wise words, and very important to be practical about this. I guess one of the things about the ceasefire which I heard when I was in Israel just a week ago was one of thinking about a ceasefire with possibly a buffer zone, so that the residents of the south of Israel will feel safe again. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not going to open it up right now, but I'm just putting it out there. This is an idea which I heard from somebody who is a very strong left-wing activist who knows lots of people from the south. I don't know what a buffer zone managed by an international body looks like, but that was just something floating around. But we don't have time to explore that completely, do we? Luma, what do you think?
No, I think we are running out of time, and what I would love to do is just wrap up this session with deep appreciation for everyone that has shared their personal experiences, their perspectives, their outlooks, and really recognize that it is with these type of collective spaces and sharing and our willingness to engage with each other in all of our complexities that we can actually create change and a better future together. And it is really these type of stories that we need to come back to and really recognize. I'd love to close the session with a poem that celebrates just that, a personal story. This poem was written by Ra'fat al-Arir, who was killed this week in Palestine, in Gaza. He is a poet, professor, an academic, and he wrote this poem just I guess last week. And the poem is called If I Must Die. If I must die, you must live, to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
Thank you, Luma. Before we hand back to Tiffany to close the session, I want to invite you, and Lindsay, I hope the chat is now open for everybody, but to send it just to you as host and co-host, and so we can see it as well. We'd like you to put in the chat a very short word or two of what are you taking away from this talk? What are you taking away with you? And just put it in there, and we'll read a very small number of them, and we'll try and do it pretty much simultaneously. So please put your word or short sentence. And apologies if right. Thank you for these, fantastic. We will read them out second. Okay, let's have a go here. Hope, connection, keep the solidarity and love.
Compassion, connection, community. There are good
Light.
people out there. Sorry, that was actually just one, Ben.
That's okay. Oh, sorry. Keep on going.
Yeah, there are good people out there. Courage to stand in the gap.
Break the hate. Hope, love, courage, light in the darkness.
May we transform reactionary violence into revolutionary love. Showing up, not leaving anyone alone. Revolutionary love.
Listen deeply. Gratitude, listening. Prayers. Commitment. Love for all. Go on, you complete then, Luma.
I dream of 1,000,000 of white kites released with grief and hope. And maybe we end there. And before we go, I think Hadar had something she'd like to share, and then we can hand over back to Tiffany. Hadar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Luma, and thank you everyone for all your beautiful words. Just wanted to also acknowledge that yesterday we started the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, and that, you know, we're entering this time of winter where there's so many different holidays people are celebrating, right? Some people are observing Advent, some people will celebrate Kwanzaa, winter solstice, Shebi Yalda. All these different holidays are coming up for so many different communities, which are about the light, right? Around bringing in the light. And just wanted to offer this wisdom around, you know, that sometimes when we think of light, we can think of sunlight, right? It sets and rises every day, and there's a predictability. There's nothing we need to do to bring the sun's light energy in. But fire is a completely different type of light. Fire we actually have to work for. We have to tend, we have to spark the fire, we need to cultivate it. And this is a whole other type of light. And I think that this is, you know, this time of the tradition of bringing in all this fire, light energy is in some ways also calling us in this moment to how can we actually tend and cultivate the light, right? We can't just wait for some messiah or some external light force to come and save us from this mess that we're in, but we actually have to actively become the light. We have to embody it. We cannot wait for a new reality. We have to actually birth it and bring it forth. So just wanted to acknowledge that as we are partaking in different holiday rituals in this time, that may we add this prayer. And maybe just one thing I'll just also add that I really love. So I'm an Arab Jew. My family comes from Syria, and there's a Syrian Jewish tradition on the holiday of Hanukkah to light an extra candle. And this came from the time in Spain when the Jews were expelled in 1492. They actually went, right, to all the safe cities across the Ottoman Empire. And my family went from Spain to Syria. And Syria actually opened the Jewish community with open arms. And this is why the Aleppo Jewish community would light an extra candle for the light of Syria. So, you know, that past seems so far off from where we are now because we're bound in our own time. But I just wanted to add that as a prayer. And my personal ritual this Hanukkah will be to light an extra candle for Palestinians, because our past and our future is really shared. And we have to remember that our lights are interconnected. And this is our only path. And it has been true and it will be true. And in the present, we will do everything we can to create that reality.
Thank you, Hadar. I noticed that, Ahmed, you have your hand up. Is it, would you like to say something? You raised your electronic hand.
Yes, I want to share
نعم.
first of all, I want
I
to
want
okay, in English. First of all, I want
عرفت.
to happy Hanukkah to all of you. The second issue which I want to add, I remembered a sentence, and it is very, very meaningful to me, that said, to save Israel, end the occupation. To save Israel, end the occupation. And we need to work for end the occupation to build a better life to all of us, for Palestinians, Israel, to all the world. Just we need to work very hard the occupation to guarantee that the 7th of October will not come back and will not make it again. Thank you.
Shukran, Ahmed. I wanted to say a massive thank you to Luma for sharing this with me. Thank you so much for this wonderful working relationship. I appreciate it.
Likewise, Ben, and thank you all for your time and privilege and patience. Thank you.
All right, so we are closing out. As a reminder, this was recorded, and we will send the recording out later today. Thank you for the diverse voices that were represented today, for speaking your truth, for sometimes difficult honesty. But what we do different here at Combatants for Peace is we don't run away, we lean in. And I thank you, everyone who's been here today, leaning in, listening, embracing your own humanity and holding space for everyone else's. Because we have 2 minutes, and today it was about reimagining or imagining new possibilities. I want to share closing voices from Combatants for Peace. 23 members got together after October 7th, and they wrote a poem about their shared dream. So I want to read this poem from these 23 members. We'll send you all a link, and it's intended that we light a candle when we read it, and we hold this dream in our hearts and we dream with them. So when you receive it, we invite you to light a candle through this holiday season, and that we would dream together. An end to the violence. Some days I wish to die before I see another loved one killed, and still I dream for an end to the bloodshed, for the protection of life, for help from the international community. Love. I dream for love to replace fear, I dream that we would see ourselves in each other, images created the same. Let us not use religion to justify supremacy, murder, and hate. Let us heal and forgive. Let us find another way. Freedom. All my life, I do not know what it means to be free, not even one day. What does it feel like? Before I die, I wish to know. I dream for an end to the occupation, for collective liberation. Homeland. I dream of a home where I belong. This beautiful land could be a paradise made holy through our care for one another. I do not want to make the other leave. There is no us and them. We both want to live in peace, dignity, justice, and liberty. So let us sit and talk for as long as it takes. We are both here to stay. A shared future. I have this dream where I watch Palestinian and Israeli children play. Not as kid soldiers or heroes. They just get to be and see another day. I dream for our children to live together in peace, in a homeland where they can believe in humanity. This dream begins with me. Blessings to you all. Thank you again for joining us. And when we send out our email, if you want to support the work of Combatants for Peace, we are working to build a new majority of joint community committed to peace and justice, non-violently. Your support is needed now more than ever. So we invite you to give generously at this time of year, and you will get an email from us. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.